I'd like to call the April 22nd, 2024 Infrastructure Committee meeting to order at 1 p.m. Okay. I guess the first agenda item is to approve the February minutes. Do I have a motion to do that?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second, all in favor? Okay, minutes are approved. Borough projects. The roof reinforcement project at 80 Windsor. Okay, so, Matty?
Yep, thank you. So there was a pretty extensive status report included in the council agenda meeting packet for last week. I wanted to talk this morning about some updates that were discovered on Friday, the day after the meeting. We had our weekly status meeting on site with the contractor and the borough's representatives, Yerkes Associates, and the structural engineer and the historical architect. And we just reviewed the project status. Everything is tracking on track. One thing that we did that was discovered was some potential wood-boring insect activity. In one of the areas where there is some excavation happening for the footers, some rot was something that looks like perhaps termites. In one of the, I am not an architect or an engineer, one of the sill plate, there it is disintegrated, so it will require some excavation and some reinforcement. So the engineer is currently working on a change order for that, and we're hoping that the damage is not as extensive as is not extensive. We've also contacted an exterminator to review it and assess it and to treat it. And we're going to inspect the entire building for that. So that's something that I'd like to bring to your attention as a potential upcoming change order, as well as, I don't know, you all probably live in old homes and you're familiar with plaster and lath and how that works. There's plaster and lath in this building. It's like living in an old home. And once that plaster key is broken behind the lath, the plaster just starts dropping. There's a nice section of it that's right above where one of the column excavations are happening, that it looks like it was repaired at some point. If you look at it at the side and shine a flashlight, it's a different surface, so it looks like it had failed before. That's separating from the lath and will need repairing also. So that'll be an upcoming change order. I'm hoping not as extensive as possible termite damage. That's probably the historical architect will make a recommendation on the type of repair to be made.
When do you think we would know more about this?
That should be this week.
So before the next council meeting?
Yes. Yep. Also not included in this project, if you remember when council awarded it, is the finishing part of it, the painting. Because we didn't know what the scope was going to be as a result of this project.
Right.
And so that will also be forthcoming as we are identifying that, since it is an imperfect building, where the support structures are supposed to go against the wall is uneven, so it's making a gap, a noticeable gap. And instead of creating some sort of trim to hide it, the historic architect is recommending that we paint before we put the support beams up, so it looks like it was there all along. So this week we'll be identifying the paint color and an approach to paint those areas where the columns are going to go in prior to us painting the entire.
What would the funding source be for the painting?
Not sure yet. Working on that. If you remember at the council meeting on Thursday, I had discussed this option or this opportunity that we have with the Narberth Borough Industrial Development Authority.
Yeah.
After my meeting on Friday at the library and talking to some folks there, I'm thinking that I'm going to recommend to the Development Authority that would be a better project for them to help us fund, is the finishing aspect. My instincts tell me that we might be more successful in getting user buy-in if it's finish related. If we can allow, if we can segment it, it's going to cost X amount to finish, paint the library, ask the library for a contribution, the development authority would match it. So these are all ideas at this point. You know, there's nothing in stone yet,
Okay.
but I'm thinking that we could hopefully pay for it through that.
Okay, I've captured that. Any questions, guys?
No.
And just an update on the LSA funding.
That's local share, right?
Local share account grant that the borough received for improvements to this building. The intention was to use it for the HVAC system for this building, which has been recently completed. Unfortunately, that project was started prior to us being notified that the grant monies were awarded. So we couldn't use the $250,000 that we received in that grant to fund that project. So I have been working with DCED to ask them to change our scope of work to include 80 Windsor Avenue. I made the argument that it is a part of the municipal complex since we share a parking lot, and that we would be able to use that $250,000 for the 80 Windsor Avenue roof reinforcement project. DCED is in favor of that and have recommended that the Commonwealth Finance Authority approve that, but it won't be approved until the CFA says yes or no. They are scheduled to meet on May 21st, I believe.
Recommends that the Commonwealth Finance Authority approve change at May 21st.
I believe they meet quarterly, hence the delay.
Okay.
Yes.
Every other month at the most, I think.
Okay.
Okay. Norworth Avenue Bridge.
So.
Oh, sorry, any questions about the local share funding?
Nope.
Go ahead.
Bridge continues to inch towards completion. I've got a quick update that's more highly technical. We did not meet last week. We've gone to, originally it was meeting twice a month, and then it had become every other week. A couple of meetings ago, we're like, we really should go back to the twice a month. So we're doing that. That'll start in May. We did not meet last week because most of the folks who are on the call could not make it. I did get an update from the project engineer, Jesse Gormley, and I've got a couple of bullet points that I'd like to discuss. It's highly technical. The D4181-UC forms have been received, right? It's a lot of engineering talk, right? Lots of forms. For utilities, Pico Electric and Verizon. Draft agreements were sent out late last week to Pico Gas and Pico Electric and Comcast for their facilities on the structure. Pannoni also inquired about the status of their permits with Amtrak. If you remember the recurring theme, the delay is Amtrak and how difficult it is for us to get action from Amtrak. The borough solicitor continues to nudge them on a monthly basis about our construction agreement. To no avail. We continue to nudge. For the roadway, the borough's project engineer Pannoni is still performing an internal quality control review of the constructability resubmission and addressing comments that were received from PennDOT. The anticipated resubmission has been shifted to this week. They have received the signed non-standard guide rail end treatment form from PennDOT, and our PennDOT project manager attached it to the project development checklist. So lots of technical things that are happening, a lot of things that take a long time. The bridge design is still being reviewed by PennDOT, and we have no updates on that. If you remember, the bridge includes bridge lighting that is recessed along the bridge that's incorporated into it. For the borough to connect to that, the borough will need to create a new account. If you remember in our schedule of bills, you see all of these PICO bills, and many of which are related to streetlights. So we'll need to create a new connection along with a meter for that to work. As I said earlier, there's no further updates on the status of the construction agreement from Amtrak, At the conclusion of Thursday's council meeting, I asked the solicitor to nudge Amtrak again. Benoni is preparing documentation so a PUC submission can be e-filed as soon as the bridge approval is received. So, you know,
Bridge approval is received from PennDOT.
from Amtrak and PennDOT. And so, once we get all of those approvals, the last thing will be the PUC. And so we're teeing it up for once we get all of those approvals for that to work. I was also wondering if this committee would like if the project engineer attend this meeting in the future via Zoom. He is offered to attend if you'd find that helpful.
He should come to the next one.
You got it. Can make that happen.
Who's called the project engineer?
Yeah, Jesse Gormley. And that concludes my bridge update.
I noticed something about Pico had an issue with the physical address of the bridge. Wasn't sure. Not a big thing, I'm just an item of interest, I thought that was kind of an
Because they
oddball.
need an address to assign it for that electric account.
Okay,
That was their issue.
interesting.
Because usually, we'd attach it to 100 Conway.
Right.
Since we have no address to attach it to, the bridge is a bridge, it's not a property. It was a technicality.
I just a question about Amtrak's approval. So just on my own notes that I made previously, I thought Amtrak approval occurs like much later after Pico and Comcast and Verizon approvals. Is this like a different, does this have to do with getting on Amtrak's construction schedule?
Their construction agreement.
Construction agreement,
Yeah.
so that's different from getting on the construction queue.
Yes, the
Okay.
construction queue is after everything is approved, everything is done.
Got it. Okay.
Then, okay, when can we get you on schedule?
And I'm sorry if you probably mentioned this already, but they're still discussing whether they're gonna waive the down payment.
Yes. No official action's been taken yet.
Okay.
And I think it would benefit this committee for having the project engineer here instead of me interpreting it and, let's have the engineer here to answer any specific questions. He's the person who is best positioned to answer detailed questions.
Okay, well, I guess moving along, I guess, slowly. Okay, the street light on the 100 block of Dudley.
So if you remember at a previous meeting, it was discovered that there was a street light that was missing from the 100 block of Dudley Avenue, closest to Haverford Avenue. Thankfully, we had a council member who gave us a live feed at night and shared the link via YouTube, which really helped us put it into perspective. And so our Public Works Manager, Jeff Eldon, explored it and realized that, yep, there was one there. And so what we're asking from this committee is to please review the action item request. And if I could ask this committee to make a recommendation pending the recommendation of the Public Health and Safety Committee, since we discussed it there, to approve this purchase and to send it to council and recommend that council approve this at their business meeting in June, or no, I'm sorry, in May.
Oh, it has to be a business meeting, it can't be the workshop? Okay, it's not that urgent, okay.
It is not.
Okay, and do you need us to vote?
I would prefer that this committee take action, yes.
So someone could make a motion.
Yeah, I'll motion that we recommend approval of the funds for the streetlight on Dudley, on the 100 block of Dudley Avenue, just north of Haverford.
A second?
All in favor? Okay.
Thank you. And that was for a total cost of $1,407, and it will be out of the streetlight electric usage and repair, for which there's just over $32,000 of the $40,000 budgeted available.
Even projecting usage for the rest of the year.
Well, that's as of the end of March.
But, well, oh, it's hard to say how much is
It
usage
is.
and how much.
Is that amount, was that set aside for unanticipated expenses like this, or, you know?
Not really well. You know, if you remember, the budget was accurate but not precise. This would be one of those line items that, if you look at what the number that was budgeted for last year, it didn't accurately represent the true number. And we haven't had enough cycles, annual cycles, to see how much we're paying for in electricity and what our average repair costs are. Because the LED streetlight transformation happened relatively quickly, or, you know, recently, we haven't gone through enough cycles to really have a really good budget number for this. I expect this budget number will be increased in the upcoming years, since the borough has assumed the liability and responsibility for maintaining and repairing the streetlights.
Well, I mean, they're relatively new, so they probably haven't been a lot of repairs to date.
Correct.
Okay. Other project status from the borough engineer.
Yeah, so this should be a relatively short update. The largest upcoming project would be just approved the 2024 roads program last week. So we're in the process now. We'll get the contracts in place with the contractor. So we would anticipate construction definitely in the summer, but we would hope earlier, end of the summer, once the contracts are in place. We'll have a pre-construction meeting to kick off the project. We'll also be working with the borough office to coordinate the opportunity to that Shirley Circle residents if they were so inclined to.
But we don't have any idea.
Well, I
Are they
think,
interested or not?
I'm not sure. I think at this point, we're just going to be providing some contact information, and then if they wanted to contract with the contractor, they can do that.
Okay, next.
And then just a simple update, the very last little bit of the municipal HVAC project will wrap up once borough staff, once the system's flipped over to the air conditioning for the final balancing of the system. But that's the only other two projects we have going on right now. The only two capital projects that are
Well,
going on right now.
besides the roof, but I mean, that's, but that was already.
The roof, yes, besides the roof, yes. Yeah, the roof is the capital project of 2024 right now.
And Panoni is not involved.
And we're not involved in that one.
So you're saying the HVAC project is in final stages?
We just, yeah, the very last phase, last step that had to be done is when the system changes from heat to air conditioning. They gotta do a final balancing of the
So
system.
it's summer balancing. Okay. Okay, and then, is there anything that you wanted to discuss about the capital plan?
Well, I wanted to give this committee an opportunity to give me any final feedback that you might have after reviewing the factors. That was the major update that was submitted to this committee since the last time we met. If you remember, it was 2 months ago, Councilmember Gaudini developed the factor prioritization. So it's all built out. You probably heard my feedback at the Finance and Administration Committee meeting regarding several of the items that were included in the high priority. Most of it has been, most of the feedback that I've received has been regarding the fleet vehicles for the borough. And so as I've been thinking about it, I'm going to go and reassign those. I think medium and medium high would be better for a final priority for those 3 fleet vehicles. And the genesis of ranking them so high was that at the time, I was discussing with a source for some potential grant funding, which is why they got inflated. But since then, that trail has run cold. So I think it would be best if mix them to medium high. I think Public Works is the highest priority, since our Public Works manager continues to use his personal vehicle for borough-related issues, responses, he's on call 24/7. And the second highest priority would be the Chief of Police, who currently has a vehicle. However, it is a fossil fuel vehicle and it is on its last legs, but it is continuing to function. And then the third priority would be for the borough manager, which has not been a benefit for any borough manager at the borough. It is one that is often provided in other municipalities, and it was a way to talk about fleet management as a way for us to get more grant money for EVs.
Could part of assessing the fleet needs be the anticipated mileage in a year, like, that those cars will put on, and the cars that they'll replace too?
Yeah.
Also, people who use their personal vehicles for borough business right now, do they submit mileage for reimbursement? Probably, I'm guessing, or no?
Never.
Really?
Never. No
People
one-
just use their own cars and, really?
I don't think anyone has,
Ooh,
to my
okay.
knowledge. Did that happen while you were here last?
No.
Okay.
Oh. All right.
So that has been something that has been absorbed historically,
Yeah.
where you have employees who use their personal vehicles and they do not submit for reimbursement.
Okay.
The other thing that I would like to add is that Borough Engineer Eric provided some really good feedback on the CIP, and he brought my attention to our pollution reduction plan that I was missing. Several projects, so I'll be integrating those projects into the final version, final draft version. And if you could, please get me any, if I don't hear any feedback here, I need to hear final feedback from this committee and Finance and Administration Committee, so I can then start crafting the financial analysis and the written document.
What was say that again, the name of the pollution, what is
The
it?
pollution reduction plan, there were other projects that were included in the borough's adopted pollution reduction plan. They include the Haverford Ave bioswale, Wynwood Ave bioswale, Norberth Park bioretention facility, library bioretention, and inlet filter system. So the other thing that I wanted to bring the committee's attention to is that, if you notice, the CIP doesn't include any park projects, because we've got the park master plan that is currently underway, and I thought it was premature for us to identify park improvements without the completion of that plan. So I anticipate any recommendations from the master park planning process to be integrated into next year's capital improvement plan review and update. Also not included are 201 Sabine. That's another conversation. Any capital repairs needed there, because that's a whole another separate conversation that depends upon where council wants to go with the future of 201 Sabine. Also, it does not include the Narberth Avenue Bridge. While the Narberth Avenue Bridge technically resides inside of our capital fund from a financial standpoint, we have segregated funds inside of the capital fund that it's its own thing. And I wrestled with, historically it had been included in the capital improvement plan, and it really inflates your numbers because it's a $15+ million project. And so it inflates the expectation of how much capital improvements do we have. So I segregated that out and would like to manage that as its own separate capital thing, its own nugget. The other thing that is we're still trying to figure out are sanitary sewer repairs. We have a capital improvement budget inside of the sewer fund. And so Jeff and I are talking about best ways to move forward any other capital funds, whether it's emergency related versus known issues. So there'll probably be some cross-pollination with some sewer investments that fall outside of our capital improvement budget included in the sewer fund, which we're looking at as more of an emergency reactionary type thing, such as the break that was discovered on Marion Avenue that I discussed with council at Thursday. Am I summarizing that accurately, Jeff?
Question about the rain garden pump outs. Because I guess we're kind of planning to continue the installation of those, I guess, starting in 2025. So do we already have identified locations? We're going to need a process for identifying those ahead of next year. Yes.
Yes, and so that's those projects that were identified as asterisks are also projects that require engineered plans. And I would like council, this committee, to get into the habit of identifying capital needs. Capital construction is its own thing. To get us to capital construction, we need fully engineered plans. That usually takes I would like council to get into the habit of budgeting for that out of the general fund the years before those things, those nuggets, those capital improvement nuggets are planned to be done. Council has not been budgeting enough money historically for those planning type exercises. Plans aren't typically paid for out of capital funds. There are grants available to get plans done, but those are too far and few between, especially as it relates to capital projects. There are grants available for capital projects, but in order for you to get those grant funds, you need those fully engineered plans. So you're seeing the timing of it. I was messing around with the 5-year window and trying to time these projects in such a way where council can then implement general fund dollars to complete engineering the year before. The example being the Elmwood Avenue Bridge. That is, I think, the next critical thing that council really should consider as part of the capital improvement project, which is a major expense. In order for us to do that, I have a draft to be completed in 2026. And so for the 2025 general fund budget, we're going to need to budget general fund dollars for the borough engineer to complete the plans for that bridge. Then the timing will be in such a way that we can then bid it and have it constructed in 2026. So that's also will be discussed in the written part of the capital improvement plan, but I did it quickly, visually, and identified those projects with asterisks that require fully engineered plans.
So, thank you for identifying those, and then I guess those will show up in the general fund.
Yes.
Yeah, assuming that this capital budget that shows that the following year is there.
Yes.
And you'd have to back in and do that.
So remember, the capital fund, the capital plan is not a funding document. I'm going to say that over and over and over. This is a planning document. What is the funding document of the municipality? The budget.
Right.
And so this plan will go into our budget discussions where council can discuss, hey, do we want to fund these projects? If so, it's going to cost us X amount of dollars, working with the engineer's office of, okay, how much is it going to cost and what's the timing to develop these plans, so council knows how much they would have to invest in the plans, and then that becomes a discussion and a decision-making point for council.
Are we committed to those 19 bump outs, stormwater bump outs? That's our current plan?
That was in the pollution reduction plan.
So that 19 is, in your pollution reduction plan, it was 23, so that's 19 plus 4 you've done. That's not to say we can't do more of them to get credit, but the plan said 23, and that 19 more would be those 19.
And I did the timing part of it. It was going to be difficult for the borough to invest and complete 19 bump outs in 1 year. We just did 3. 3 is like the benchmark. And so the timing of it is, okay, we want to do 19. Let's do 19 over a horizon. Realistically, we can do 3 per year. And so that's what that funding means. We're going to continue to invest 3 per year. Also related to that is the extensive sidewalk investment that we have to make with borough-owned sidewalks. That was a big nugget. And so working with our public works manager, Jeff Eldon, he and I worked on, okay, what would be a realistic number to budget every year to just start chipping away, pun intended, chipping away at this sidewalk. And so we budgeted, I think it was $30,000 to $31,000 annually to get all of the known issues over the next 4 years. As a way to reduce it into more bite-sized financial nuggets.
But will you have, like for these projects like the Elmwood Avenue Bridge, you're gonna have to have some cost estimate in time for the general fund budget, right? To know how much to put in.
Yes.
Right.
So that's where the capital improvement plan comes into play. You approve this capital improvement plan. That gives us the roadmap. I'll work with the borough engineer. Okay, here are the plans here are the projects that are budgeted for next year. How much are we gonna have to, how much do you anticipate those are going to be, estimated cost, excuse me, and then how much is engineering gonna cost? So this is the first step that we need. Right now, it's been reactionary. Eric, oh my goodness, can you give me a price for this? This is more proactive. Here are the known issues, here's when we wanna do it. Now we can have, now Eric will have enough time to come up with a more realistic estimate of what that cost should be, which then segues into a more accurate cost of how much the documents should be, the planning documents.
So, do you guys have any other comments about the overall capital plan document? I mean, these specific projects? No?
No, I didn't have any other stuff.
So, I mean, I think that, well, it went to finance.
Yes.
But that was very, like,
We had 15 minutes, and it was not an adequate enough time.
Sorry.
Not adequate enough to get into it. So I imagine we're going to discuss it at the next Finance and Administration Committee meeting. I am going to continue to chip away at this and get it fully sussed out so we have more to talk about. The more I hear from council members, from feedback, the more confident I am in the design of it, and that it doesn't need to be, oh my goodness, it needs to be retooled. If it's minor changes, I'm at the point where I'm much more comfortable making minor edits versus the macro edits.
well, I mean, I think the document, is in pretty good shape as it stands right now. It's just that the thing that's unknown, and maybe not so much of our business, is, like what's the funding
That's right.
side look like? Because I mean, it's hard to, these numbers, there's some big numbers in there, but we don't, fully know. But that's really the job of the finance committee to know we can prioritize, but then things may have to shift out because.
That is the unknown. Thanks for bringing that up. The financial part of it. We are this borough continues to be limited by its limited budget. And I'm trying to develop the 5-year capital plan to be manageable. It's still going to be a little bit of a stretch. It's going to be expensive because we do have some pretty significant investments that we need to make. But the idea is to make it manageable. And there are unknowns. We don't know what the funding sources will be. There's too many unknowns with outstanding grants. Some other things with the bridge. We still don't know what the bridge costs are going to be. So the more we get closer to the end of the year, the more it will come into view. And the financial aspect of it, as I said in Finance and Administration Committee, the closer you are to the date in the capital plan, the more accurate those numbers are. The further you get every 5 years, it gets pretty fuzzy, including financing. Because you don't know what's going to happen in those 5 years to account for your available funds and any grants and any bonds that you might have to issue for capital improvements.
But one thing that I guess I'm not 100% clear on is like, which of these projects is like absolutely like has to be done versus, we could delay it a bit. I mean, obviously this one's to be spread out over multiple years. Some of those can be delayed.
That's where you can rely on your borough engineer and your staff.
But like the Elmwood Bridge, like that has to be done,
Yes.
right?
The roof
It had to be done.
has to be done.
So are there
Yes.
others on that list that are in that category that have been prioritized appropriately?
Have to be done from a health safety standpoint.
Right.
I assume that's the lens through which you're looking.
Well, yeah.
Versus have to be done from a legislative standpoint, such as the PRP,
Right.
right? Those are two different perspectives.
Yeah.
Health safety, it's the roof and Elmwood Ave,
Okay.
and the bridge. But again, the bridge is segregated.
So there aren't like, I mean, these projects are important, but there are none that are like, quote, emergencies.
Correct. And even with the Elmwood Avenue Bridge, so it fails, so we close it, so then there's no pedestrian access,
Right.
right? So it's not, even that is kind of,
Yeah.
we could close it
Yeah.
and just not have pedestrian access? Would it be inconvenient? Yes.
Yeah.
Would it be ideal? No.
But it's not just the bridge, it's also the stream.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It is a stream, the bridge, you're right, the stream banks are gonna have to be fixed up. But, they're,
Somehow the world isn't ending.
the world's not gonna end. I mean, if the Gabion baskets give out, all right, so then you pull it back and you stabilize it, like,
So there's emergency things.
it can be, correct, yeah, it can be stabilized if it had to be stabilized, but it's, to maintain the creek channel and the bridge, it's gonna.
No, I know it's important, I'm just trying to determine.
But no, the Public Works, I think they're keeping their eye on it. If something starts shifting, then
We may have to spend money that is like wasted essentially, because we're gonna spend it on a temporary repair, that, if we had just done the whole thing, it wouldn't have been necessary, but.
yes, yeah. But I mean, the bridge is the most, the most critical item, and if it needs to be shut down, then you shut it.
Yeah, okay. So, any other comments on there?
Well, no, just the sidewalks also seems to be important because we're also asking residents to replace their own sidewalks, so we should probably be meeting the responsibilities that we're asking them to meet. Do the other thing.
Yes. Amen.
And how's that going with the sidewalks? Are people fixing the sidewalks, or you really haven't reached out to them yet?
The tracking's not being done by us now, it's being done by Kevin Walsh, but, we've received a good amount of phone calls this spring so far of people asking us to come out and respray their blocks, because they have a contractor in place.
To do what to
To remark the blocks because we sprayed them.
Okay. Oh, I see, because they have.
A year ago, or just about a year ago.
So you're going back and making sure that whatever repair they did was good? Okay. Does anybody have, I guess there's no public comment, but does anybody else have any items they'd like to bring up about? Okay, well then, take a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?